In Nigeria, the position of crude oil as the mainstay of the economy cannot be overemphasized. Oil plays a vital role in shaping the economic and political destiny of the country. Therefore, Nigeria's economy is an open economy with international transactions constituting an important proportion of our aggregate economic activities. Meanwhile, a recent media showed that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) has imported over 159,000 metric tons of petroleum metal spirit, popularly known as petrol or fuel, between February 1, 2025 and February 12, 2025. A breakdown showed that NNPCL received 2 cargoes carrying 37,000 metric tons of PMS each. This is a total of 99.2 million liters as of Monday, February 10, 2025. Similarly, NNPC also received on Saturday, February 8, a cargo of 20,000 metric tons of PMS, which equal 26.82 million liters. In the same vein, Wednesday, February 12, it received another cargo of 37 metric tons of PMS, which is approximately 50 million liters. However, the aforementioned cargoes were received in a Lagos port here in Nigeria. In addition, NNPC also received a cargo of 20,000 metric tons of PMS at the Calabar port on February 5th, which is about 20,000 metric tons, equal 26.82 million liters of PMS. The continued importation of refined product, despite the restart of the Port Harcourt refinery as well as the Warri refinery, raised questions about the sincerity of NNPCL. On our discussion segment, Professor Ken will be joining me in a minute from now. We are going to be looking at the matters arising with NNPC PMS continuing importation and the impact on local refinery. Professor Ken Ife is an economist and lead consultant at ECOWAS here in Abuja. A very good day to you, Prof.
I beg your pardon.
A very good day to you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, sir. Let me quickly get your reaction on 2 things that are quite simultaneous to what we are discussing today. First, yesterday we have gotten the news about the new inflation for January. What is your reaction to the 24.4% drop of our inflation in January?
Well, it's not actually a physical drop, as you would have said, but what has happened is that the methodology for computing inflation has been reviewed upwards to 2024 because the guidelines is that you use the latest data. So the latest was 2024, and that the aggregate of that 2024 is what is used to inform the new January computations. And when you look at those, you will see that a lot more subsectors have been created. And then I don't know if you have that table to pull it up. If you have the table to pull up, it would be good to discuss those items on the table. But what you see is that unlike what we used to have CPI, which is headline inflation, food basket sub-index, rural inflation, urban inflation, and core inflation. But now they have extended those to bring in new, because within the food basket, you have farm gate price, and then you have imported food inflation. I think they separated that. And then you also have within the core inflation, excluding not only the food sub-basket in there, but also the energy, because those two are volatile. So energy is also separated. So what you are going to see is that there will be now more categories to be looking at those information. And then secondly, if you look at the table shows some disaggregation of data. For example, on the O1, which is where you have food, they have removed the food cooked outside the house. In other words, food eaten in restaurants or mama put, wherever you eat them, they removed it from that category and they put it in catering, food catering service. So it has actually gone to where it belongs, hotel and catering. So what then happened, you see now the impact of that. It should be about almost 40-something%. It's down by almost 10% to 40%. Whereas the one for the restaurant has increased. And then also, if you were looking at that table, you will see that insurance and financial services had 0 weight. But now it has been given a weight of 0.3. So the weighting have all been massaged to fit the reality of the new consumption patterns that have been identified that were not reckoned with in the previous measurement. So the overall impact of this is that the inflation has come down by 10 percentage points from 34 plus to 24. So that is the overall impact on it going forward.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that insight. This is a developing story. We'll be looking at that as the days unfold. But let's focus on today's main, bottom of our discussion, particularly NNPCL. There are questions about NNPC sincerity in these refineries working, the 4 refineries working. There's sincerity question around NNPC, ensuring that we've put a stop to fuel importation. Are you also in that school of thought that NNPC is not sincere with the issue of them still importing close to more than 200 million liters of PMS into the country?
No, I definitely agree with you. I think it's criminal for us to negate all the efforts of the present administration. And I think the president has actually done tremendously well in the fiscal policy space, and more importantly, in the monetary policy space. Look at encouraging local-based production, applying so many measures to increase the inflow of currency into the country. And then we have the likes of Dangote that have come in and now reversing the pain that we are having, and now beginning to export several cargoes of extremely high quality fuel to Shell BP, and then also 2 lots of cargoes to Saudi Aramco, the biggest of its type in the world, and that they're all confirming the superior quality of this product. And for us to be seeing any entity importing 200 million metric tons is actually just bastardizing all the gains that we have had. And then let's look at 2 things about this. One is that it is against the law. We have a new law, PIA. Now that PIA has provisions on DCSO, which is the Domestic Crude Oil Supply Obligation. And that says priority should be given to local refining capacities whenever you produce crude. So what you have is that the upstream authority publishes the requirements for local processors, refiners, and then clamps down on the crude produced, allocates to them what has to come inward to satisfy our need before exporting. Likewise, it comes to the second area where you talk about importation of petroleum products. It says, companies that are actively refining or have licenses may import shortfalls. It says shortfalls. So who declares shortfalls? Is it not the midstream authority?
Exactly.
And then who issues licenses? Who issues licenses? And for goodness sake, there's no shortfall right now because the capacity that we have are exceeding our domestic requirement. So what you are seeing now is that whoever is authorizing this, the authority cannot come from nowhere. And whoever is importing this, NNPC is denying that they are not the ones that are importing. But somebody has given out the license for that. And the president has to step in because that is unfair to all the effort that the president is doing to encourage local capacity. And then you know that many refineries are in trouble abroad now because of what is going on. And what they are now doing is dumping. They are now dumping because they are shutting down. They are now dumping their fuels. Let me explain to you 2 things that happen with dumping. Dumping is one, you are dumping inferior quality goods that may not meet the requirements of the host country where they are refining them, but they are confidently dumping them elsewhere. Where are the signals for the dumping? ECOWAS Commission has a limit of 50 ppm of sulfur, which expired 31st of January. Now we're importing products that far exceed that requirement manifold. Now, 2, you also have the impact of this high sulfur on the longevity of the generators, the cars, the pollution in the atmosphere, the toxic chemicals produced. You have all of that. But let's look at the second part. The second part is actually the most dangerous, which is what they call predatory pricing, subsidy. Because these countries subsidize products to enter into your market with 2 objectives. 2 is to undercut in terms of price But 3 is to destroy your productive capacity in the country. Now, those are the 2 things that they do. Now, customs ought to respond to that. When customs sees those, they raise the value of the ad valorem tax, or which we can do, not with recourse to CET, because we are signatory to Common External Tariff of ECOWAS, but we use the levy instrument to compensate for that differential. But then, of course, we have to stop that product and go and do internationally verified testing. And if they fall short, they have to be shipped.
Okay, we were expecting a connection with Prof right now, but he has said it all in a way that we could quickly.
To help.
All right.
And let me tell you another thing. When these products come in, they will have to enter the market. Now, look at what happened last December. For about 20 years, we have always been suffering. Everybody in this country suffers because you have hoarding of fuel, you have long queues in the petrol station, you have hiking of prices of fuel, and then you have high cost of transportation of food. So all of them peak in December. Now, what happened was that normally government, the PPP, that the Petroleum Equalization Fund, was merged with the petroleum pricing and also the midstream and downstream department of the DPR to form that national, and then the PIA put an end to the equalization. Now, equalization is out of the picture, but people are claiming that they're owing them, marketers, they're owing them $80 billion naira. Now, what then happens in December was that Dangote brought down the price, and we all celebrated it because we want competition in this marketplace, so that the consumers will benefit. He reduced the price, but he even went beyond reducing the price to mop up the equalization component, which means that equalization needs to maintain that price across the whole country. So somebody has to pick up that price of distribution. So they picked it up. Private sector picked up over 10 billion naira in equalization. So what has happened that President Tinubu has pushed subsidy away from public purse to private purse. So the private sector is absorbing the subsidy. Why don't we celebrate that? All we are having is some spurious importation of 200 million liters of petrol, not only to negate the subsidy, but also to begin to put pressure on the biggest thing that the president has done is to make a bold decision on naira to crude, to say our crude for local refining and the PMS produce must not be traded in naira.
Exactly. And
so you can see this conspiracy.
Now, Prof, I really enjoy what you have just said, particularly citing the PIA law. I want to quickly ask this question because I'm tempted to ask this. Is it a power play between NNPC, Nigerian Upstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Agency, and Nigerian Midstream or Upstream Petroleum Agency, the 3 agencies that were created by PA? Who is senior? Who is junior? We know that the 3 of them are created for a particular purpose. For instance, NNPC is created for the purpose, or NNPC is created for the purpose because of the poor performance of the former NNPC that was not making profit for government, and that's why they are creating it in a quasi-commercial agency for government to make money. Then secondly, the other 2 agencies are for technical purposes and also for guidelines in the sector. But as it stands today, can they call NNPC to question? That's what I'm asking. Is it a power play or just an oversight?
I think it's a mischief. First of all, the upstream is actually doing what it should do, which is to publicize the refining requirement of the country.
Exactly.
That is to say, this is our domestic refining capacity. So those who are producing crude, I'm going to allocate to you what you will give to the local economy, and then what you can export is doing that. And then obviously NNPC is part of the beneficiary of that law. Now the second point is they also will then the midstream comes in, because the licenses for people to import depends on what you think is the deficiency, and we haven't got any. We haven't got any. So where is it? Where is the deficiency, or what you call the shortfall? Has he announced the shortfall? And what shortfall is it? And then who gave you the audacity to go and start issuing licenses to import substandard fuels into the country? Not only undermining the law itself that says you can only import in a shortfall, when you have shortfall. And then not to even talk about when the quality is questionable, and when you don't even discuss the fact that there are predatory pricing and the subsidy being granted to destroy the capacity we are building. Look at all these companies put together. NNPC has spent over $10 billion in the last 10 years repairing their refinery and all that. Now, 2 of them presumably have come into operation. So why are you importing to undermine their market? And then NNPC is denying. NNPC is denying. NNPC is denying that it's not them.
Prof, pardon me. I wanted to ask.
Who are the marketers?
Prof, I wanted to ask, where are the PMS that these 2 refineries are even producing currently, according to NNPC? If they are producing, how come they are still going to importation?
No, but the fact of the matter is that I have from a good authority that NNPC has denied that they are not the one that imported, and they never imported anything since last year. So that is what I'm here. But you have a lot of marketers. So that's why you have to move the searchlight to the midstream authority. You can move your searchlight to the midstream authority, because I know that there are noises at that midstream authority that keeps talking about monopoly. What kind of monopoly? What monopoly? I don't understand. What monopoly? I don't know what you're talking about monopoly. It's better for you to deal with the devil you know than the angel you don't know. Importing substandard crude from outside to destroy our population, to destroy our technologies, our equipment, our cars, our transformers, not transformers, our generators. Is that how you fight competition? I mean, it is unbelievable. This is a matter that the president alone has to deal with, because he's the one to look at what he has spent on building confidence, rebuilding confidence in this petroleum sector. Look at what he has done to encourage local capacity. Look at what he has done to stabilize Naira. And now, do you think that money, how much is it? How many hundreds of millions of dollars is involved in that importation?
Exactly.
That money is sourced from the market, and then eventually it will come to central bank to defend the Naira. And then that means hemorrhage on our foreign reserves.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
At all.
One person is exporting product and bringing dollar. Another person is bringing nonsense and then consuming the dollar and making the country a fiscal policy, a monetary policy untenable. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up.
Very sad, Prof. I would say very sad, because one of the key issues that was raised in that report was that over 407.4 billion was spent to import 302.7 million liters of petrol. Then another 104.8 million liters was also imported in February this year 2025, and they spent over 200 billion naira. By the time you juxtapose this in dollar, it goes into millions of dollars, and as rightly pointed out, it is the foreign result that is affected. And I want to ask this question: how much of this importation, how does it now, doesn't it have a very stringent impact on naira stability upon all the fight, upon all the structure measures that CBN put in place to ensure that naira is stabilized? As we speak this morning, naira is now selling at 1,513 naira on the official price, on the official CBN platform, minus the black market that it will go to 1,600 or 1,700. So what's your take on that, Prof?
No, what I'm saying is that this is an affront. This is what I call fiscal rascality and fiscal dominance over monetary policy. That is an affront to everything that the monetary policy is trying to do, to achieve. It's an affront because you are going to be sourcing this, causing turbulence in the forex market to get that money. And you see, if NNPC says that it is not them, now, if it is proven that it is NNPC that is importing this or importing part of it, it means that NNPC is less truthful to Nigerians about what the hell they are doing with their new refineries. Not the new refinery, the one that said they refurbished. Because I've had accusation that they are just not producing the fuel there, that they are dealing with naphtha, whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is that I cannot see how NNPC will be producing refined products in their two refineries and they are importing those 200 million.
Exactly.
So that is where it's going to be out. But then you know that there are many oil marketers. There are some oil marketers that are standing on the fence and they're wanting to import. So the jury has to go out to NUP, what you call it, the midstream, sorry, the midstream authority,
no,
to know
midstream
what the hell
authority,
they are
yes.
doing. Because their hostility to the national cause doesn't give us a lot of room for concern.
Now,
And you cannot see somebody who has put $20 billion in helping this country achieve self-sufficiency, and you're fingering that person and saying, oh, it's monopolistic. What have you done? For over the years, you have sunk in over $10 billion repairing NNPC refineries, and then and then buying shares in the company, and suddenly you are fingering the company, and then causing mayhem in our whole financial structure and the whole system stability that they've been building over time.
Exactly.
It doesn't do good to the administration, because I know the pressure this administration is going through. The president has to deal with this matter.
I think I have to agree with you on this regard, particularly with the midstream authority that is in charge of managing the midstream and the downstream. And as rightly pointed out, they normally give the licenses to people who does all these downstream outlet, filling station, and the rest of them across the country. But I would also want to ask, the PIA, does it have any room to punish any head or any of those agencies, management or board, when it goes wrong like this, or when something goes wide like this?
Well, the thing is that the good thing is that actually that the president is the minister for petroleum. So it is the president that will have to enforce this.
Exactly.
He will enforce it based on what the explicit provisions of the law says, and then obviously he also the one that appoints the big boys in there. So he's the one that will call them and give them marching orders or send them out through the back door. It's just not acceptable. I don't know who it offends every sense of justice that we live in a country where we are seeing this kind of contradiction in the face of a president that is sworn to want to change this economy and do something good. It's unbelievable.
Now, Prof, let's now look at the local refineries themselves. I'm not even talking about the government-owned refinery. I'm talking about the private-owned refinery. Dangote have tried so much. You have even mentioned it at this point in time. Not that we are giving too much kudos to him, but at least crashing the price of diesel. For instance, if you remember, diesel was being sold at 1,500, 1,300, 1,400. As we speak right now, it has come down to 1,070 naira as we speak. And this same diesel is still being imported. That's one. Then the other local refineries that you rightly mentioned that the government is supposed to ensure that this naira for crude in exchange to come in. How much of that has been done to ensure that these local refineries receive their crude? Because there are so many politics around it, which many Nigerians are still very confused whether they are getting it or they are not getting it.
Well, the fact of the matter is that, one, you must bear in mind that the moment the new administration came in, they needed money badly, because we have $7 billion forex backlog.
Exactly.
And then some people were on our nerves, the airlines, and it was becoming scandalous. So they had to deal with the airlines and get them off. The government needed some dollars. And so you could see why they securitized some future revenue on crude, and also securitized some future dividends from the LNG.
Exactly.
So those are acceptable. You cannot go back on whatever level of commitment for the selling of those crude to Afrexim Bank and their agents. So that is part of that. Then also you have ongoing commitments. Obviously NNPC needs some of the crude, Dangote needs some of the crude, modular refiners need some of the crude. And those who are actually producing the crude would need get some dollars as well to be able to maintain their own obligations, because everybody borrows money. So that is why the PIA says NUPRC sort this out, find out what the capacities are locally, publish those, and then wade into whatever is being produced and then allocate to them what has to go where. Bearing in mind that the priority is to meet the needs of the local refineries. So how much they have done that, it remains open to this thing. But then realize that the government also embarked on additional 1 million barrels a day, which you could see some results. They've gone to 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, if you add condensate, even to 1.8. So they're heading out there to deliver 2-point-something million. So you can see progress. But we want to see that all that progress meets the need of the local refiners as well. And you have seen that Dangote is saying that they're going to hit their 650,000 barrels a day by the end of the month, something like that, which means they are confident that they will get more crude, even though they are still importing some crude to meet the shortfall But you cannot excuse what is going on. You really cannot excuse what is going on right now because that is economic sabotage. That's the only language I can use to describe that.
Exactly. And using that language,
and the president has to rein them in.
Exactly, sir. Because many of us are raised concern, and I remember outside the studio when we first commune on this particular topic, and when you raised the issue on the other different platforms, I was so concerned, and I said, let us engage on this. Let us create advocacy around it so that people concerned can take action. And it's a question I need to ask. Is NNPC and the people there are too big to be called to question on this issue for them to come clean, even though they have said they are not the one, but they have not publicly come out to say they are not the one? So don't you think that they need to publicly come out and say they are not the one and ABC are the one responsible? Even the midstream and downstream petroleum authority also need to come out and say something about this.
Well, I think it is the president that we should be saying to ask the question. The president, who can lie to the president? The president is the administrator of petroleum now. So if you are telling these people, they're already denying. It is the president. The president will call all of them around the table. They will give him a security report. So what is it? It's the president. We should all be saying, president, do something. President, get to the bottom of this. It's the president. Not talking to those guys anyway. So, but I think the time has come that we need to face the reality that this country must be allowed to move forward.
True.
And then with all the turbulence we are seeing in the international scene, and with this our man in America sniffing tariff and this, that, and the other, and wanting to flood the world with oil, that we need to get our own. We have to get it right locally and use the strength that we have. The government should give way to private sector. The private sector are the ones that will run this economy. We have had it. Look at it. For 3 years, NNPC has been doing crude swap with foreign refiners. They will send all that crude, all we get back with over 100 products in crude. We only get back PMS, and upon getting back PMS, we still have to go and borrow money, over $4 billion to go and subsidize. What the hell? Now that regime is over. Tinubu has put them by the side, and then Tinubu has also made sure that the money for 3 years they never allowed only 10% of their money was going to CBN.
Exactly.
But under the Tinubu, their money is now going through so that we can have a little thing going to our excess crude account and a little accretion to our reserves. That's what it should be. So the one that he has to do now is to sort this out. It is this publicly owned refinery is not our priority. Our priority is to develop strong modular refineries, strengthen the Dangote group of this world, and have more people come in so we can have a level playing field. The community citizens will benefit. Competitions of this nature will benefit. I'm telling you this: if Dangote goes on and then they stop this shenanigan, fuel price will come down to below 800 naira, and then the petrol, what is the other one? The
diesel and aviation fuel.
900. It will come down because it's already absorbing. We encourage them. They're already absorbing our subsidy from public to private. Encourage these people so that this country will move forward. And let me tell you something else. The supply chain alone around that 650 barrel a day refinery, the supply chain alone will be more than 5,000 businesses producing downstream products, making tires, making chemicals, because they also produce platform chemicals.
Exactly.
The dienes of this world, the butane, all this kind of small butane, and then polymeric materials. They will all be creating plastic factories and the metalloplastic factories, and then all kinds of organic chemicals, thousands of them based on the platform chemicals produced by the Dangote refinery. You should encourage that because you are going to have the supply chain empowered, and millions of businesses will come in and thrive on that big boy that is sitting there.
Exactly.
That's what we should be doing, rather than vanish all these businesses and then give it to somebody abroad to bring in or adulterated petroleum product. Doesn't make sense
at all. I agree with you, Prof, that it doesn't make sense. We should be aligned what would have created jobs and millions of jobs for our people, our population, and to be done outside there. Now, Prof, let's really take another look at something very, very critical that I know you are so concerned of. Just 2 days back, the CBN asked banks directors who gave out loans that are so bad to their banks to resign. What's your take on that, sir?
Well, you see, CBN has prudential guidelines. And those prudential, sorry, let me begin by CBN has two core mandates. One is price stability. That's why they are concerned about inflation.
Exactly.
But don't forget that inflation is not the only thing that is price. Forex is price.
Exactly.
MPR rate is price.
Exactly.
Interest rates are price. So all of that, price stability. But the second one is financial system stability. So that's why they have their prudential guidelines and they have risk-based supervision, and then they monitor these banks on a monthly basis. And then because there are some of their liabilities like insurance and all of that, you find them having joint inspection with the NDIC. So that's fine. Now, there are so many other guidelines within the entire framework that tries to ensure that the financial system is stable. For example, the insider trading and then the loans you give to your directors. It's not that you doesn't want them to give loans, but sometimes they give loans with fake collateral. That inadequate collateralization of the loan. So when they default, the bank is exposed. Because what then happens is that they cannot realize the thing. And then let me give you an example. When in 2004, 2008, 2009, when we have the US property subprime crisis, it spread like wildfire, and Nigerian banks were exposed. And that was when Sanusi was governor of central bank. So what he did, and thank goodness, at that time we have almost $60 billion in our reserves and over $22 billion in our excess good account. So there was the money to fight. So he now set up AMCON and then released the access 6 trillion to be able to give to the banks to buy their bad debt. What bad debt are you buying? It's all these debts created by their lending behavior. And now we are trying to now sell those things to recover the money. You couldn't get anything. You're getting less than 1.5 trillion. So 4.5 trillion is gone. That is the danger of what they are doing. So central bank is right in calling them to order and continue. These things are in their regulation. The central bank has to officially and occasionally raise dust. And then of course you've seen the other thing about recapitalization.
Exactly.
Which is also very complementary, because the capitalization absorbs all this liquidity in the system, gets the more commitment of the owners of the bank to the fund available to the bank, and of course sequester half of it though, and then make sure that they are able to meet their obligation.
Exactly.
So CBN is perfectly in order in doing what they're doing.
Fantastic from you, Prof. Prof, I know you have another meeting in less than 30 minutes from now, a ministerial meeting that you are joining, but CBN NPC meeting is ongoing right now. Tomorrow is the final closing date, and they'll be coming up with their report. They'll be coming up with their rates. Any expectation from you, although I know you are very close to them, but any expectation on what will happen tomorrow? Because a lot of people are saying we are expecting a status quo maintenance based on the inflation report that just come out yesterday.
Yeah, you see, the inflation report, for whatever it means, shows that the inflation is now below the monetary policy rate. So it triggers a change from negative real interest rate to positive real interest rate. Now, which is actually one of the ECOWAS 10 macroeconomic convergence criteria. It says that we should not have, one of them says we have to have single digit inflation, the deficit to GDP shouldn't be more than 4%, the positive real interest rate, there are 10 of them. So one of them is on that. So now that we have moved theoretically to a positive real interest rate, that means something to the monetary or policy authorities. It means that they are going to have difficulty now convincing us on why they should further hike the rate. That's number one. But at the same time, it also says to them, why you want to wait and watch a little bit, just hold that rate. So, but it does not provide the argument for them to start change course and start dropping down the rate. That's what I say to you. Right. So in all probability, I will be saying that it is best that they just hold to give another month or two to see how things are going to settle. Because don't forget, we're just fighting that same inflation. And then it has a spiral. It has a cyclical trajectory. Now that we are moving into planting season, all the farmers' money and goods are going into the ground. There are going to be less food available, and we have to wait for 3 months before we start harvesting this. You know what I mean? 3-4 months.
Exactly.
So they will have to be cautious. And then there are many other policies that are active now. When you have so many policies, you just have to wait to see which one is effective and which one is, you have to monitor your policies.
Exactly.
So that is what I will be advising, rather than jump to change the rate. But don't forget again that the hiking was also instrumental in encouraging portfolio flow.
And we can't forget that.
Because there was over 70% increase in portfolio inflow last year. So you could see that was helpful. And then, of course, they have to take their money. And then you can also see lots of profit taking and all that stuff, and then servicing obligations and all of that, and cash now, making the reserve come down to 39. But now it's also back again yesterday to 40 billion.
Exactly.
So it's a very dynamic environment that I would think that perhaps they should consider holding for now, and then see how all of these items play out.
Thank you so much, Prof. Very intelligent, and intellectual, progress from you talking about Nigerian economy, particularly on the NNPC importation of PMS that we have discussed largely on this discussion today on the market report. Thank you so much for being on the show, Prof.
My pleasure.
Although maybe when we see next time, we'll talk more about Nigerian budget, which will be one of the large part of our discussion for 2025. No. I'm talking of our next engagement.
No problem.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for being on the show, sir.
Thank you.
That has been Professor Ken Ife, one of Nigeria's foremost professors of